Hey everyone, this is Nick, and I've finally started to add menus to the game. So I've added a couple of them. There's probably going to be some more stuff that we'll need, so we'll go through and take a look at what I've created. We'll add some more stuff to the menus and make everything as close to final as possible. Anyway, let's get started. The very first thing that I did was draw a bunch of stuff that I knew I was going to need for all of my menus. So I got a bunch of buttons. Basically they have a sort of normal state and then a clicked state, which is the same as any of the other buttons that you've seen so far. I drew this little scroll that I'm going to use as the background for all of my menus, so all the text and all the buttons will show up on top of this thing. I drew some titles because it was easier for me to just draw them here and then import them into Godot as sprites rather than try to mess around with Godot's sort of text editor. And then I drew a little menu that shows you the controls so that you can actually see those again when you're playing the game. So let's take a look at how they work in the game itself. So from the menu screen of the game we have About, which doesn't have anything in it, but that's where I'm going to probably put a little note about myself and how I created this game, and where you can find me and stuff like that. Currently, the only thing that works on the menu screens in the title menu is the quit button. So Godot has a pretty simple implementation of quitting the program. As soon as I click quit, it brings me back to the editor. So let's take a look at how I did that. If I go to my script over here, and then find my title screen, it's already there. Ignore my super janky implementation of resetting all the variables, which I'll come back to. So Godot has this sort of inbuilt function that calls the tree and tells it to quit. And whenever you pass this main loop notification w-input request to the function, it will quit the tree. So all the button does is call that function with this particular parameter. And it's pretty simple actually, so I was pretty surprised, and that's one of the reasons I really like the Godot engine. So quit is pretty simple. Let's go into the game itself and see how I'm handling the pause menu. So here we are. Anytime you hit the escape key currently, it brings up the pause menu. And like I said, I drew that little sort of controls scheme thing so you can actually see the controls after you start the game. And it's very simple. I'm not sure if this is going to be final, but this gets the basic idea across. When you click back, it takes you back to the game. So one thing you might notice is that, well, actually it's a little bit difficult to notice in this scene. Let's go into the field with the bugs. Okay, here we go. So whenever you click or tap the pause menu, it's pausing the tree, and Godot has a built-in function for doing this. So just like you saw getTree.quit, whenever you click the pause menu, what I'm doing is using getTree.paused. And this will pause everything in the tree. It stops all sort of physics processes, all process delta functions, etc. And the way that you make sure that some things actually stay active is by going into their properties and under pause, changing the mode to process. So that way, whenever you're calling getTree.paused, anything that's set to process will continue to play even though the rest of the tree is paused. So that's super convenient. So let's go back into the game. And one thing you can't do is open the pause menu during a cutscene. So as long as the letterboxing effect is present, you can't actually open the pause menu, and that's something I think was pretty important. But for example, try to open it here, can't do it. And as soon as that animation is complete and whatever tutorial information pops up on the screen is done showing, then you can open the pause menu. So if you're in the field and you have additional things on the screen, like in this case you have the jar, and if you have the list open, as soon as you hit the pause menu, it hides that stuff. And that's just to make the screen a bit less cluttered. So when you want to actually quit back to the main menu, click on main menu, and then it calls the scene change script that I have that runs in the background all the time and takes you back to the main menu. And like I mentioned, my kind of suspect implementation of resetting all these variables happens on the title screen script. Basically, there's no saving in my game because it's going to be kind of short and you're intended to be able to complete the game in sort of one playthrough of like 20 or 30 minutes, which means that every time you open the title screen, all of the game's variables, all the player variables, all the story elements, etc. need to be reset, because if you're going back to the title screen, it's assumed that you are trying to start the game again, or at least you're finished playing. Hopefully that isn't annoying, but the game is designed to be short enough, so you should be able to finish it within sort of one comfortable sitting. So because all the stuff in the sort of pause menu and some of the other menus on the title screen are held in a canvas item layer, they're sort of always on top, so I have to reset the state of the buttons as you come to the menus and leave the menus. So maybe not the best implementation for like long-term stability or ease of use in the future, but it's definitely something that works now, and since this is my very first game, I'm just kind of concerned with getting everything to work now, and then coming back and making any changes that I need to. Okay, so since I don't have anything in my About menu yet, I'm going to draw something and we'll stick it there, and then I'll show you how I build it. I'm really just going to draw this as a giant sprite and just paste it here instead of using any of the label nodes or anything a bit more sophisticated, because I'm lazy and it works, and I'm totally fine with that at this point. Anyway, so let's do that. Alright, so I've finished drawing. I've imported my sprite into Godot, so let's add it to the About screen. So currently I have a node that I'm using to sort of handle everything that's on the About section of the menu, so I'm going to add a new sprite, and we'll just call this About Description, and to that we'll load our texture. There we go. Okay, so we can't actually see it because the About screen is not shown. Let's enable the About screen so we can actually see that. I'm gonna hide all my title stuff, turn on the About stuff, and then in my animation player that I have, I need to run the animation to the end. There we go, so now we can see it. So the About description stuff, I'm gonna move into the center. So this is super simple. Ideally, if you're working on a screen with a lot of text, you want to use things like control nodes and make sure your text is responsive. This game is super simple, so I'm not even going to worry about that for this. But hopefully this gets the job done anyway. I think that looks good. So under About Info, I'm going to lock that to make sure I can't accidentally move it. Okay, so that's what it looks like. So that is going to be hidden initially. And under About Elements, that's also going to be hidden, and we'll turn back on our title elements. Okay, so now let's go into our script and take a look at what happens when you actually click the About button. So we have on About pressed, we want to turn on our About stuff. So let's do that. About.set visible true. And we also want to set the About info visible. Okay, so we have our About main sort of container set to visible. We have our About info set to visible. Let's see if that does anything. Oh, and I know all of this code is probably like super spaghetti janky. There's probably more efficient ways of doing all these things. I think I'm gonna try to go through towards the release of this game and like clean some of this stuff up, but as long as it works for now, that's what we're gonna go with. So let's see if this works. All right, here we go. About. Oh, and it shows up, but some weird animation thing is happening. And here it is. I don't actually want the About stuff to be visible until after the title fades out. So I'm gonna make sure to put a yield there. So we'll do player, wait for animation. There we go. So none of the About stuff will show up until after that animation is finished, and then it will fade into view along with the rest of the stuff. So I want it to disappear after the About animation plays backwards and fades everything out. Set visible false. Here we go. About. Oh, still looks weird. Okay, something screwed up. Almost there. Oh, I think I forgot to reset the animation player. So if I come down to animation player, yeah, here it is. So that needs to be back at the beginning. And I think that is it. All right, let's run through everything one more time. About, looks good, back. Quit, looks good, back. So let's go into the game. And tutorial's over, so now we should be, there we go. We can see controls, we can go back. Go back to the main menu. About, there we go. All right, so I think the basic implementation of the menus is complete. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope to see you in the next video, and I hope this was informative. Thanks again.